Right. Your legs still bothering you? Oh yeah. So Linda, I'm sorry. That's okay. Gonna get better one day.
That's all my mom is a teacher. I'm waiting. We need to have a diet.
Just a little bit. You can put that one right here.
No, I like
Musical chairs, just without music. Get everybody to sit out. No, Thomas, you cannot have all that Yeah.
Watch the heads, watch the heads.
Darren, go. All right. All right, what a crowd today. Yeah. Good deal. Yeah. So excited about all the growth that we've got going on here. So, how many of you were out in the field this week telling the story of our community? Stand up. Good. If it led to a new family help or a new business partner. All right, so who has we have a guest today? It would be standing if you had more than one guest.
I go in.
All right, everyone came and left.
Yeah, one left.
All right, great. Who has signed up for their licensing education course? All right, Tom.
Yeah, Tom.
Anybody signed up for their exam or passed their exam?
Lindy has this. She passed it.
Oh! Right. Very good. We have a light.
I think Dylan shared that he's taking his test.
It's taking it.
Way to jinx me, Thomas. Thanks.
You got it.
You gotta blow it out of the water.
Yes.
You got this. And Hans is gonna be there
Yeah.
next week.
Probably like Monday or something. Sometime.
I'm holding to that. All right, and let's see what else we got here. Anybody recently certified, qualified, or validated? Anybody? No? Okay. Everybody, do new people know what certified, qualified, validated is? People don't not know. Okay. So certified, qualified, validated is the path to become independent in your business. So get with your trainer and about what each of those mean and how to qualify for those so that you can start running things on your own. And that's After you get licensed, this is the next big mile markers that you need to be working on, okay, to get through that process. All right, great. Who has signed up for the next big event? All right, good. All right, very good, thanks. Our next big event is Nashville. That's coming up in January, the first weekend in January. So highly encourage you to get to that event, even if you're brand new. I think there may still be a few tickets left.
No, they actually went up to 150.
They went up to 150.
So if they buy them from Rachel at 100, they're saving $50.
They're saving $50. Okay. So Rachel still has a few tickets for $100. They are 150 now. So when I was brand new 2 years ago, and everybody kept talking about you got to get to this, big event coming up. Then it was in California, and I got kind of tired of them telling me that I was really serious about this. I needed to go. So, okay, whatever. But it really was a game changer for me. It really kind of helped set my determination on, okay, what is it that I need to do next to really move this forward? And you hear lots of stories. You get to see people struggle through what they had to go through in order to push through the obstacles, the internal obstacles, the external obstacles that we encounter. Anything worth achieving is going to have some obstacles that you have to get through, right? That's just life. And nothing is really all that easy, and if it's too easy, then it's probably not all that worth pursuing. Things worth pursuing are difficult, and it takes some time and effort and that focus. So get to this next big event. It's well worth your time and effort to get there. At least get your ticket. Worry about the plane ticket, though we're kind of running on the last few weeks here, but plane ticket and accommodations there in Nashville as well. One more thing that I want to, because I've talked to a few people who were not here on Tuesday, so we do have a number of Christmas parties going on this weekend. I want to make sure everybody knows about Christmas parties. We've got one going on at Evans and at Evans' house. Daniel's team and Evans' team are going to be there. And so if you don't know about that and you're on Evan or Daniel's team, be sure to get with them to find out more details about what that is. If you're on Mark's team, Rachel or Clinton's team, then there's also an event going on at Rachel's house this weekend on Sunday. All of these parties are happening on Sunday afternoon. Yes, tomorrow afternoon. So get those details. We'll probably have them repost addresses, both Evan's address and Rachel's address, so you know the details about that, how to get there, that everybody is welcome, right? So, of course, there's a little competition. Whose party is going to be that?
I know everybody, look, those of you on Evan and Daniel's team, you cannot come to ours. Just to let you know, you have to go to Daniel Evans gluten-free day. Ours is going to be full of dairy, gluten, and alcohol. All right. Awesome. Great job. On that note, I just call. I always give these guys a hard time about their gluten-free dairy-free, but it'll be fun, I'm sure. Right? I'm sure the desserts will be really great. Okay, I'll stop. Okay, so but with my base shop and Rachel's base shop, we've got to make a few announcements regarding the party tomorrow. Again, our base shop, make sure that you're hanging out. If you're the newest person on the team, like Steven, you're welcome to Rachel's house as a part of the Christmas celebration here in the office. So make sure you hang back very quickly right after, because we need to go through a few announcements and make sure we're getting everything ready. So today I'm going to be doing orientation Who's here for orientation besides Stephen? I know Stephen is here for orientation. Who else? George, have you? I think George has been for orientation. Yeah, you'll be with Quentin and with Evan and Do's and Don'ts. Yeah, and Do's and Don'ts. A few of you are new here, so I guess Stephen will be you and I in orientation class. So we'll. Oh, yeah, he's already been. I think it's just Stephen. Yeah. So those of you that have been through orientation like last week and have not been through Crusade and Do's and Don'ts will go with Evan to this back corner room when we break, and then Stephen will go to one of his offices here. But hey, before Daniel gets ready to do training or general training, I want to hand out a check. You know, handing out checks, and I always have to preface this, the majority of us have direct deposit. Now, I highly recommend this guy get on direct deposit. This gentleman is not the only guy paid in our last cycle, obviously. But getting a check represents helping a family, right? That's what it means. I always say this in my interview. You know, the only way I'm paid is when we make a difference for other people. Isn't that kind of a cool? Yeah. That's a cool byproduct, right? This guy here, I'll tell you what. I remember when I first met him and his wife. This was an ASAP training appointment. Got to meet him. Got to meet his wife. Loved these people. Of course, like I always do, planted seeds about working with our company, about making a difference for families. And all you can do, you know, you tell the story, let the chips fall where they may, right? That's what I always say to do. You just share the story. And of course, I planted some seeds. They just decided, hey, right now, yeah, I'd like to get a roadmap completed and find out what we can do there. And we made a huge difference. I remember when he set up some accounts with his family, we took their cap rate in their old account from like 9.5% to up to 25%. We made a massive difference to this family, and I think almost to the extent of the reason why it was so cool to have this. This is what we all want. We want people calling us, right? I remember getting a phone call from this guy going, "Hey, some things are happening at work that don't look all that great, and man, I know you told me about this a couple of months ago. I don't know if it's too late, but you know, I'd really like to consider working with you guys." And it was almost like this feeling of like almost trepidation or worry or fear that I was going to say no, which I almost said, no, maybe. I'm teasing. I didn't tease him like that, but it's so great to have him on the team. He's a huge part of our Pueblo office. And I'll tell you what, I was looking at this check. This check is about 2.5 times bigger than my first check. So he's off to a great start, but I expect way more from this guy and way more of these checks to come because I know he can do it. And he's a part of our Pueblo team under the great leadership of Heather Strobel. And this check goes to Darren Bodenreich. He and his wife Ann are just wonderful. If you don't know Darren's not up here as much, up here every other Saturday, or only when he gets checks. This is a special event for Darren. We hope to have him up more, but get to know this guy. I'm teasing that. All right, good. All right, so if you're here for Do's and Don'ts and Crusade, you're going to get up and kind of head to the back. Those of you that are newer and have been through orientation. And then Stephen, you and I, along with your daughter's here somewhere, I think.
Yeah, she's in Evan's office.
Okay. Oh, is she in Evan's office? Why don't we'll just go in there. We'll go in Evan's office. So why don't you get up and just head back to that location where your daughter's at, and then everyone else can get up and follow Evan into the corner room here. We'll have this whole training.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're right in.
Oh, I'm gonna miss Daniel's training.
What?
So I'll tell you guys the premise for this. I was driving in, and I've been hearing. Wait.
Yeah. Okay.
So the training today, the title of it is "Don't Let God Be Your Crutch." So I'll explain this in a second. But I know the majority of people in the room have some type of religious belief. So I'm going to share kind of mine, regardless of whether you do or not. You'll get a lot out of this. But there's this really funny video I want to start with that is an analogy of what I'll cover with you guys. So just watch this. I don't know if has anyone seen this? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I'll let you know, I'm like 99% sure it's totally clean. I can't remember, but I don't remember anything in it. So if there's anything, just know I had forgotten about it.
And I'd like to talk to Queen.
My name's Ted Lasso. I'm new head coach for Tottenham Spurs in Broadway here. Implement my coaching style.
Football, that's where you play. You got the grass, you got cleats, you got helmet and mask on.
Football in States is my specialty. They have different kind of football over here.
Yeah. Circle them up, have them put on their pads, let's start playing for real. They're wearing their pads, coach.
There's a lot of small similarities.
AP, my coach, they're going to play hard all 4 quarters. Okay? What's that? Okay, halves. They're going to play hard for 2 halves. We're going to play until there's a winner and a loser. What's that? Okay, until there's a winner, a loser, or a tie.
You try to end a game of tie in the United States. Yeah, that might be listed in Revelations as the cause for the apocalypse.
A lot of games will get the playoffs. No playoffs. Yeah, my job has got a lot easier. No playoffs.
One of the issues I have with tackling is
Hey, a tackle. What the hell? That's not a tackle. It's just sliding around. The soccer tackle, sir.
prepare for this job. Read a lot of books, watch a lot of game films. But to be honest with you, the best way to learn how to play this game is to play this game.
Square, goal, something.
Something's wrong.
There you go. Just stop. Okay.
It's over for you.
15 nothing. We're going to go and read this.
Yeah, they do things a little bit differently. Hard me to find some things they do a little silly.
Pass him. Well, keep passing it backwards. What's going on here?
It's nice when you go backwards and forwards and not have some ref make a big deal.
You explain to me how that was offside? No, I'm asking you. Seriously. Explain offside to me. Explain what I said.
The first thing I had to do to get the job learned out of competition. We came up with a flashcard system in order for me to make American comparisons to English teams. All I had to do was link what I don't know to what I do know.
Manchester United. Super rich. Everybody has a bosom or hates the Dallas Cowboys. City. Dragons on the crest.
Was that I know Manchester United from? Khaleesi.
Manchester
Jennifer Lawrence.
West Ham United.
Pickup trucks. Because of that training that I did, I guarantee that we're going to be Cowboys and Jennifer Lawrence.
I don't understand why the sport is so low. Look how tiny these goals are. Keep knocking that ball in his head. That legal? Totally legal. Hey, that's, wow, 3 points.
Yeah, like an application for fall, not alone.
Just exercise. Who's wore shoes there? Gareth Bale. That's Gareth Bale. Where he's from? He's from England. Wales. Wales. Wait, that's another country. Yes.
But I'm learning. These young men, I just would not understand exactly what I was trying to do.
Guys, all I'm looking for is 60% effort, 4,000% of the time. That's it. Yeah. My little girls, so not a cat in the world. Honey, you are killing me. 3 quarters. Now get those in the women's section done. Pick up the ball in their hands. That is a violation.
Out of respect for this game. Start small. What's the name? Blanker. You know what it means? I think this means great. Listen, Wanker is someone who doesn't mind being alone. Likes to sit with his thoughts. Well, it ain't your job. You got to participate in learning curve. I tell you what, I'm in Tottenham, and I'm here to stay. You can guarantee that 1 second here, nobody got fired.
Wasn't that funny? Yeah. All right, so So everyone got their notes? So here's what I wanted to talk about, because I've gotten this from a few different people. So did you guys write down what I said?
Yeah.
So don't let God be your crutch. I'm going to throw a few scriptures at you guys. Again, if you're not religious or don't believe exactly what I believe, you'll still get a lot out of this. But in Genesis, the book of Genesis, there's this scripture that talks about God making man. And I want to read you this because I studied Hebrew in college. And so I got to learn a lot about this. But most people that didn't obviously do Hebrew would know this. But the name Adam is actually if you guys don't know, Adam means mankind. Did anyone not know that? Okay. So mankind, and then it's kind of a play on words because Adam's a first name, we view it that way, but in Hebrew, it actually just means mankind in Genesis 1. So I'm going to read you this. This is a scholar on it. So this is the kind of the way to translate the word where it says God made man in his image. Elohim, the great powerful one, filled the man with a representation of himself, appearance of something or God, but their function. Through the Hebrew words of this text, we see that God had placed within man a shadow or representation of his own function, equaling goal, purpose, thought. It is our responsibility to live our lives as a representative of God, acting in the same manner as he would. So the other thing with Hebrew is it's all about imagery. It's not about concrete thinking. Like we're in a Greek-minded society, so we're very mathematical with what we think. We take things very literally, right? But Hebrew is totally different. Hebrew is built to where when you read things in scripture, even if you just read old Hebrew texts, the goal of it is to give you an image and an idea, and less about to give you, like, here's the concrete, blah, 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 right? That's very Greek. So here's the bottom line. What that's saying is, in Elohim, the great powerful one filled man with a representation of himself, we're supposed to be a representation of God, right? And a better way to think about this would be a mini God, okay? So again, it's kind of a weird, probably a lot of people haven't dug this deep into it. But, okay, that's what sometimes people will think is an idol, okay? You have power. What else?
Creativity.
Creativity, okay? Like when you guys think of God, just whether you believe in the God I believe in or some other, like what do you guys think of?
Trinity.
Okay, but obviously powerful, right? Something powerful. What else?
Love.
Omnipotent. Love. Omnipresent. So would you guys say that God, regardless of how someone views God, pretty powerful, right? Okay, so a mini God would imply that it's a similar type setup on a minier scale, right? Right, like it. So if you read more scripture in Genesis, it talks about Adam and Eve. They're like naming animals. Well, Adam is, and then Eve comes along, but they're like naming animals. They're doing things that are very much related to like activity, creativity, and having some form of a relationship to where like they're doing. It says, to man, be fruitful and multiply, right? That's the whole idea. Be fruitful and multiply. Would you guys say it's passive? No. When you guys think be fruitful and multiply, what comes to mind? Activity. Okay. What? Duplication. Okay. Creation, right? Some form of a creation to, be fruitful and multiply. So here's the point on that, is that should be the way that you guys translate your relationship with work. Okay, so I'm gonna throw a few things at you guys, and it'll all eventually come together. So if you guys think about the idea of an employer, okay, what does an employer do? to an employee? What? Okay, they manage your time. What do you give to your employer?
Service.
Service. Okay, service, time, what else? What?
Your skills.
Talk a little louder, guys. Skills,
Talent.
talent, okay.
Time.
And then what did they give back to you?
Wage.
Wages, paycheck, right? So I want you guys to have this idea, okay? So you have an employer, you know, whether it's military or job and marketing or whatever, they're paying you and you basically pay them back through your time and energy and blah, 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 right? Okay. And then you read that scripture and it says, be fruitful and multiply. What's the difference?
You're limited on the work side.
With the employer? Okay, limited on work side, good. What else?
You can't multiply, only the boss. You can't multiply yourself.
Right.
When you're getting paid.
Right. Your guys' relationship is very different, an employer relationship, than a relationship that is set, kind of a healthy relationship with God, essentially, right? So here's what I want to ask you guys. Here, do you view a relationship with God in which context? Do you view him as an employer, or do you view him as what I just said, be fruitful, multiply? Because here's what I'm going to argue to you guys, because I already know the answer. Most people view it as an employer. And here's what an employer looks like, okay? You are begging God to change things about your life when you're supposed to go do it yourself. You should write that down. You're begging God to do something for your life that you're supposed to go do yourself. So think about this. I was thinking about this when I was driving in. Like prayer, right? I can't tell you how many times I hear people say, I'm praying about this, I'm praying about this, I'm hoping the business takes off this year, or something totally unrelated. And when you dig into it, it comes down to that relationship. They're begging God and pleading God for changes in their life that God would expect them to do themselves. Okay? So, like, here's this word that we hear a lot of in the church, a miracle. Okay? And what's a miracle? Miracle is something that's unexplainable, right? So if someone's not a religious person, another word I would use would be luck, right? Like, oh, I just won $5 million on the lottery. That's a miracle or luck, whatever you want to call it. We weren't expecting that when we woke up. And if you were, you're delusional. but like something happened that was like unexplainable, just totally out of the blue. Okay, so think about that. I can translate that to so many people here, outside of here, and they pray for miracles when what they're praying for, God's expecting them to do themselves. Okay, so let's talk about a miracle. So if you guys think about a miracle in your life, think about what that would be. Okay, and here's what I want to argue. Every miracle that you read in my context, the Bible, right? Every miracle you read in the Bible only occurs when action is being taken. So, for instance, like the Red Sea crossing, right? That's obviously a miracle. But the Israelites had traveled hundreds of miles from Egypt. They had gone through a very arduous process to leave the country, to then be set up to where they're completely going, and God does a miracle, right? You guys think about, for me, like I believe like Jesus rose from the dead, right? So, but if you think about that, he lived a very strict, focused life, and he dies. He's kind of doing his part, don't you agree? Right? Whether you believe that or not, just viewing it as an outsider, like he was doing his part, and then a miracle happened, right? So here's the point, and this is, I think, the main point today is using God as your crutch means that you're expecting God to do something that God's expecting you to do. Right? Yeah. Think about that. You're expecting God to do something that you're supposed to do yourself, right? Okay, and here's practical things. Working hard, making money, showing up and doing the right thing here. So many people will go, and I've had this, they're constantly telling me they're praying, they're blah, 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 but their work ethic's like nothing. But then they're so discouraged that they're not getting to where they want to go. When, like, let me ask you guys this. Do you think God really wants to reward you?
Yes.
Yes.
I would say it depends.
And how much you're doing.
Right, exactly. Like, do you think God wants to reward someone and give them all this money and all this success if they do nothing or they're super lazy?
No.
Probably not.
Not.
Right? And so I want to read you guys another scripture. Okay. This one's really good. Let me read you it. So this is Genesis. So this is kind of the full scripture. Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea, and birds of the air, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. That's pretty straightforward. Let me read it again. God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and what did he say? Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, right? Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over every living creature that moves on the ground. That's pretty aggressive. This is not a relationship of an employer, right? Come to me with your little thimble, and I'm going to rain, and you can only get what you want from the thimble. Like, God wants us to be very, very aggressive with what we're called to do, whether it's here or somewhere else. Like in every area, God wants us to be aggressive. That's how he created us to be. So now, moving to the New Testament. Okay, so parable of the talents. Matthew 25:14-13. Or will be like a man on a journey who called his servants and entrusted them to his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had made the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who received 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much more. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also had the 2 talents come forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have 2 more talents. And his master said, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over more. Enter the joy of your master. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take a talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. Okay. I want you guys to listen to this. This is the Bible. This isn't me talking or my opinion. Listen to this next part. I want you to think about, I want it to mess with your theology a little bit. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, so here's the point, right? You guys are called to be creators, right? We're all called to be creators. We're all called to work hard. We're all called to kick ass, right? Pardon my friend. But that's what we're called to do. But so many times we use God as a crutch because we're messed up in our head of what our relationship is with him. God's not waiting around to give you this perfect answer. He's waiting for you to start moving, and then he'll give you the answers and tell you the next step to go. But if you never move, you'll never know the next step, and you'll never get to a better place, right?
Right.
Think about that. If I have a parked car and I'm worried about, do I take a left or right turn ahead 2 miles down the road at this one light, you'll never know. But if you drive there, it's crazy when you start moving, how things start to come together very, very quickly. So you have to work hard. If you guys think about your life and your goals and your dreams, but then you're putting no work ethic behind it, and you're praying all the time, hoping God shows up, hoping things change, it'll never happen because God literally doesn't want to bless you. I totally believe that. He has no interest in blessing people that are lazy, that aren't willing to work hard, and aren't moving forward. He loves us, right? But he's not going to bless you. He blesses those that are moving because that's how he created us to be, right? Like he didn't create us to just give us crap, right? He created us for a relationship, right? So if you want to have a really good relationship with God, start doing a lot. I truly believe that. God shows up more when you show up more, right? You show up a little bit, he'll show up a little bit. You show up 0, he's not going to show up. And then you'll be that 60-year-old, 80-year-old, 90-year-old guy and gal. It's like, what happened with my life? I had all these big goals and dreams, right? I want to read you that again. Not to hammer it over the head, but I want to hammer it over the head. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. Okay? But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. The other big thing too here to think about is God is an entrepreneurial God. He's not an employer God, right? He's not stagnant. He's not wanting someone to sit in the same place for 20 years. He's literally saying, think about this. Vicky's got 5 talents. Lena's got 1. Vicky did a good job. She doubled everything. She's got 10 now. Lena has 1, stays in 1. And literally God's going, all right, I'm going to take that away. You can go out and just go to darkness. Take that 1 talent and I give it to Vicky. Have you guys ever thought about God that way? That could be happening in this room. Think about that. That could literally be happening in this room. There could be people in this room who have done a really good job of investing their time and energy and working hard. And literally, I believe, like in the spiritual realm, God's giving them more, just lumping blessing on them. And then you got someone who's hardly doing anything. And God, after a certain point, is like, I'm going to actually take more away from them. Right? Think about how crazy that is. Free enterprise, baby. Right? Like, seriously, free enterprise. Like, this isn't communism. This is like straight up, like, what is it? Capitalism? Capitalism. Biblical capitalism. So don't take that as like a political statement.
It might help because I'm on board with you, amen. But at the same time, this currency is a little different than we're used to. And maybe you can shed some light on what God's currency is so that we can all be aligned on.
Yeah,
and
I'm talking in general. Yeah, and I agree. Like, I mean, there's God's currency and our currency is definitely different. I'm not talking like straight dollars. Thank you for.
I mean,
yeah.
To make it clear, I think the faith component is absolutely crucial in what you're sharing, and it's because that faith currency is something that we often don't know how to manage. To grow it.
You're getting ahead of me because
Sorry, I'm shutting up.
No, you're good. Matthew 25. Let me see. It's 25, 14 through 30. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, for just to parallel your training today with how would I apply that to being here? Okay, yeah. No,
You guys are all thinking of it.
yeah, okay. I'll just let
because I'm gonna get
Just
to that. So, but let me go through that because you guys are both hitting exactly the next part of my training. So I'm just gonna walk on.
We love you.
No, I know. But like when I was new, okay, and and obviously I do believe like you have to have a calling here. And I think the majority of you, if not all of you, probably have that calling. When I was new, I remember the things I had to overcome. So I'm not downplaying the struggle side of getting to a better place, but I want to talk about that because I'm talking conceptually right now, and I'm talking very broad, but practically speaking, a lot of us come in either not that confident, not obviously with the skills, even if you're super confident, not knowing the skills totally of how to translate. And really, practically here, depending on where you're at and what you're called to do here, should be the work ethic that you put behind it. So like some of you guys might have a career that you love, that you're wanting to do this alongside, or some of you guys might be like, yeah, I want to be here full time, I feel called to be here full time, or somewhere in between. So based on where you feel like you're called, that should then lead to work ethic. But the work ethic is very unison. So like if you think about a human, we're complicated creatures, right? So like there's a few major pieces about us, and I'm not gonna do a ton of writing, but I'll just put up a couple things. Like you've got your mind, you got your body, right? You've got your kind of soul / spirit, right? I would put kind of emotions in here as well. But all these things, if you think about yourself, make up you. Like something hard happens, whether it's here or somewhere else, and we have reactions to that, right? Maybe we beat ourselves up. Maybe we get angry at another person, right? But all of those are coming from one of these areas. So if we are a mini God, and I mean that not in a weird way, like someone would point out idols, and I agree, like I can't think of another word that's better, but I'm not talking about that. Like I'm not saying we're above God, I'm saying that we're representations of Him. But if this is us, we have to correlate and unify our man together, okay? And I want to give you guys a few things on that. So this makes a man, and I don't mean man as in male, I just mean man as in male, female, right? Man, yeah, mankind, that's better, okay? So mankind, and these are different areas that represent us, okay? So a couple things on this that I think are really important. When you think about your mind is a very logical place, right? Okay? Your body usually is a reaction lots of times to your mind. And then your soul, spirit, emotions are usually the deepest form of us. At least, I think generally speaking, that's for most people correct, okay? So if you guys think about building up your man, there's this really good quote, and you guys might know this, I probably will misquote it, but it's the quote that the strongest human force one. Do you know that one, Carolina? What is it? The strongest human force is, yes, that one. Strongest force in nature is, it's like what you believe about yourself. Or it's basically like your identity. So like meaning that, and I can't believe, you guys don't know this one? Mark says it all the time. I can't remember.
It's a made up one.
Is it, what is it, Q?
Made up mind. The strongest force in nature is a made up mind.
That's not it. Strongest force in
Made up mind of me.
The strongest force in nature is believing, like what you believe about yourself is the same.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, so basically the idea is the strongest form in nature is kind of a made up mind, but in the context of a made up mind, believing about yourself and the world the same unified way. You know when you have in your head, when you're ununified inside, you're conflicted inside, it's like the opposite of that. It's like unified inside, where it's like your mind, body, and spirit are all working together towards, what you feel called to. So anyway, so I want to talk about these areas and how to do this, okay? So here, everyone's here. Obviously, I know some of your guys' objectives may be loftier or smaller than others, but everyone wants to make money and help families, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so we're all on the same page there, okay? So let me go through a few things, and these are things I've implemented, some of them even recently. Spirit and emotions, okay? When you think about spirit and emotions, this is your inside being, right? Like your spirit man, okay? If you think about goals in your spirit man, one of the biggest areas that you have to change for most people is the idea that, especially if you're religious, that God's your employer. I mean, really. Because if you think about God as your employer, what does that mean?
You have no control.
You have no control. Thank you, Ken. That's perfect. No control, right? No control, totally controlled by God. Okay? That sounds good, right? Kind of yes and no. Obviously, God does control everything. But here's the difference: is if God controls, like if you're called to be having control in certain areas, as a, like what I just said, I hate the word mini God. It's such a bad sounding word. You guys know what I mean? Like the image of God, right? If you're called to be in control in certain areas, right? Here's what I'd argue, just like that scripture. It's stewardship, right? Like you're called to be a good steward of what God's given you, okay? Right. And the greatest thing God can give you is opportunity. I can't have this conversation in Rwanda, right, where I go every couple of years, right? Like they don't have opportunity. We Americans have a lot of opportunity, and we have to be a good steward of the opportunity we're given. We've all been given the opportunity of Transamerica, right? Mm-hmm. So if we're given the opportunity of Transamerica, I truly believe after that, it's kind of a little bit on us, okay? So if we go, okay, I've been given the opportunity of Transamerica, and now I'm gonna also pray again and make sure this is the right opportunity. And then, okay, I got my license and I'm not doing very much, I'm not seeing much success. I better pray again to make sure this is the right opportunity. What are we doing?
Doubting God.
We're doubting God, right? It has nothing to do with expecting God or, you know, trying to make sure he's in control. It's you're doubting God most of the time. Not always, but most of the time, right? Okay, so here's the way, like that whole little thing, it's like playing that, it's like being a coach on that sport, right? Where he's like, oh, football, it's the same thing, right? He looks like a total, like, dummy, right? Okay, like that is an example of a lot of times how our relationship is with God in terms of work, right? Like we're going along and we're playing a completely different game than we think we are. And we're wondering like, why is this so hard to figure out? And like, why is it that my relationship with God and success doesn't seem to correlate? That's an analogy as to why. If you, little side note as to why I showed you that. Okay, so if we think about this area, these are some practical things that you got to do if you want to kick ass. Like if you want to go out there and make it happen and see God show up in a big way, this is what you got to do, okay? So mind, spirit, emotions. Number one, you have to do affirmations every day. I didn't do this for 4 years. I would always hear about it and I'd be like, oh yeah, that sounds super good. I can't tell you how great they are. So I'm going to give you 3 areas that I do that have helped me a lot. And literally, I've only been doing these 6 months and I've seen a huge, huge difference, okay? Number one, I'll write down my goals for the year. And I don't do more than the goals for the year. I have 2019 goals. Some of them I hit, some of them I didn't. But I wrote down kind of 6 different goals, handwritten on a piece of paper of 2019 goals. Obviously, we're getting close to 2020, so I'll change those. But that's the first thing I do. And so I will read them out loud every morning. The second thing I do is I have prayer requests for myself or my family or whatever, right? Like I have prayer requests of things that I need to be praying for, okay? The third step, or the third piece, is I have areas of, they're kind of labeled, I call all these affirmations, but then there's an actual affirmation page. And affirmations are areas that I'm either having a hard time trusting God with or having a hard time believing that I'm kind of speaking into existence. Like, I'll give you guys an example. I mean, this is a basic one. And it's no like whack on any of my team, but like, this is one of my affirmations. I have the most productive team in the entire company, right? I don't have the most productive team in the entire company right now. That's okay. But that's something I'm believing God for, over time. Another one would be areas within those affirmations, areas I want to work on. Like, hey, I kind of need to work on this area of my life, or I sometimes can say things out of context that sound bad, right? So like, I'm trying to get better, and one of my affirmations is, getting better at reading audiences, right? So that's one of my affirmations. I'd be just super authentic. That's one of my affirmations, right? And I read that every day, right? And so I have like 6 or 7 of them, and I'll add to them, but I read them every day, and they're all handwritten. So it usually takes me 5 minutes to go through. But that is all for this area. Soul, spirit, emotions, right? The other thing I'll do is I'll have a quiet time. I'll read my Bible, blah, blah, blah. But I'll also read a book. So if you're not religious, this applies if you are, read your Bible and a book. If you're not, read a book and the Bible. but like, I'll read a book of self-improvement. The areas that I do on self-improvement are kind of unique. So I actually have a few. I don't ever read fiction. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just don't have time. But I'll do one at night on a famous figure or thing in history that occurred. So like, I read a book on World War II soldiers. And then I'm reading a book on Theodore Roosevelt right now, who was our president in the early 20th century. But I read that at night, going to bed. And then in the morning, I read a book on kind of self-improvement. But the areas I've kind of, I think, come up with a good formula. One is health, physical, emotional, spiritual health. And the other is business related. So like, I'm reading a book right now called, what is it called? But it's basically like sleeping patterns and I can tell you, Optimize. It's called Optimize. If you go on my Instagram page, it's on there. But it says steps to lose weight, fight disease, maximize mental and physical performance. So I'm reading that one right now. I read a book on the art of war. I'm reading the retirement. What is it? Not the retirement miracle. I've already read that one. Yeah, the Power of Zero I have. And then other things is on scheduling and goal setting. So that's all based on soul, spirit, emotions, right? To get my head in the right place. And it kind of touches on mind as well. But this is kind of a big piece. And so that's where I start off during the day. And then when I come to the office, I have goals related to a why am I blanking? I'm having a lot of blanks today. Make it all man. What is it? It's pipeline. So I know these aren't hard words. but pipeline, like things going in and then things going out in terms of like our pipeline. So I have a baseline goal of, like right now it's 50 points. I upped it from 40 because I really want to hit December really hard because that's when everyone slacks off, right? So that's me building a broker team, setting up training appointments, finding good candidates here, all of that, 50, prospecting. And then those are like 90% all touches related to me physically talking to people, not like doing things on the computer, like actually calling someone or meeting someone face to face, at around 50. And then on the other side is more my goals related to output. So these are related to the points of production I'm trying to hit each month, the certain amount of business partners I'm trying to get. But these are now outputs that I'm trying to reach. And so I'll try to run like a certain amount of points. So if you're full time, you guys should be trying to do Well, I'll just tell you guys generally. So if someone's full-time, and I'd say 30 hours plus is I'd consider full-time, 50 plus points should be happening. And then usually 12 to 15 appointments should be scheduled per week. You can't control sometimes the reschedules or things like that, but 12 to 15 per week. If you're part-time, it's like 25 points plus. And then it should be anywhere from probably, I don't know, 8 to 10. I'd say 6 to 10. But that should be what you're consistently doing. And going back to kind of the big thing, if you're not doing that, you really can't complain about like things not happening, or it might, because what'll happen, here's what happens. Because this is how us humans are, especially if you're religious, right? Like nothing's happening, or very little's happening, and I start doubting that I'm in the right place, that I'm doing the right thing, right? But then you're not doing enough output to actually get really any results. And this is where I think, kind of to summarize everything, God can be a crutch, is that you start asking God these questions that really, if he was standing in front of us, he'd be just like, dude, get off your bum, like start doing something. You can't expect it to happen, right? You're not doing it, right? Because there's these laws of nature that God created, and work ethic's a part of them. A lack of work ethic, God's not going to show up. He's not going to help you. He's not going to just make things fall in your lap. Like, you have to get a lot of work ethic in to start seeing God show up. Like, oh, I just met a client and I just closed a case and I just made $18,000, right? Like, that happened to me a couple months ago. Totally a God. Like, literally, they called me up. I need to move $500,000 today. That's kind of a God thing. They literally paid me $18,000, right? Like, that's a God thing. But like, if I wouldn't have had all the time, so that person came from a recruit, and I actually had already helped them roll over a couple like $50,000. I'd already rolled that over. I left a really good impression with them, right? I had trained the person back, which had come from another person that I had trained, which came from a recruiting conversation I had, which had come from a spouse that I had recruited that then they had their other spouse. Like, it was all a chain of events that I was doing the right thing on, and then kind of like God gave me a bump, right? like really, I'm like, I didn't deserve that. I mean, I did deserve that in the sense that I did the right thing, but that was totally a God thing. That wasn't me like, hey, you happen to have $500,000 that you want to roll over right now? No, right? It just happened.
I believe that was you with God, right?
Yeah.
I mean, all that you were working to, right?
Right.
We always say, you're so lucky, Daniel, you're so lucky. Is that love?
No.
Because he worked it. I mean, how long of the relationship did you have with us?
8 months.
8 months,
Yeah.
right? You built a relationship, they built that with you. If you would have 8 months ago talked to them, built a relationship, they'd have never called you.
Right. Yeah.
So God was always a part of that whole thing.
Yeah. Totally. This is a quote by Thomas Jefferson. I find that the harder I work, the more luck I seem to have.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? But I think you could translate that like with God. Like, you could literally go, the harder I work, the more God shows up, right? But what I was actually trying to find before I found that video was I was trying to find a car trying to fly. And the whole idea is a car can't fly. Now the first thing that pops up is, hey, now a car can fly. Like, well, that's not gonna work. Like normal cars right now, they can't fly, right? If they try to fly, they crash, they burn, they blow up. It's like it's like people trying to, like God's an airplane, right? He's going to teach you how to fly an airplane. He's not going to teach you how to make a car fly. That's Tesla's job. but that's like a way a lot of people will do it. They expect God to show up 90% and then they show up 10, right? And it doesn't work that way. And so for you guys, practical application, make sure you're following the formula correctly. Like, make sure you're doing the right things. Make sure you're hitting your baseline. Make sure you're doing enough appointments for things to happen. Because here's the opposite. God is not your crutch. Let's say I don't believe in God at all. It still applies. You can call it luck or whatever. And here's why it applies, because I do believe in God, is God created laws of the universe that dictate everything. And he's a God of free enterprise. So if that's the case, he's obviously going to bless people that do more than people that do very little. And with that, it's not necessarily based on sometimes even whether they believe in him or not. It's like the laws of nature. It's like gravity, right? You can't just fly. Like you're gonna, unless you get Tesla's car. So any questions on that? I hope that was something that was encouraging, but also convicting, because it's something we all need to be aware of. And I was going to see if there's any other notes I wanted to pull up here.
Derek has a question.
Oh, Q and I were, no, I was gonna, you were saying the laws thing, I really like that idea.
Yeah.
And it's huge that I'm just now, my mind's kind of breaking open.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But the whole reap what you sow, we always
Yeah.
take it so negative. Like he's like punishing us. You reap what you sow. You tell your kids that.
Yeah.
You know, you do that on a, yeah. And he's got a bad image all of a sudden.
Right.
He's promised the whole world. Believe him or not.
Yeah.
When you plant seed in the ground, which you do every day. That's
Yeah.
why he sees, you see in months later, a growth occurred. He's told, that's why farming is, guys. And we're just in a different currency, I think. We tend to think in terms of money or and doing the right thing at the right time. And yeah, the harvest is coming.
Yeah.
He
Well,
promised.
yeah. Yeah, and seasons is another big thing. Like there's seasons to everything. Like you do the right thing, and then in the season there's a harvest. That's another big thing in scripture. Like it's never like I plant, I grow, and I harvest in the same season. So the key is, and I've seen this, because a pipeline is a perfect example. I mean, what we do is a perfect example. If I go up with Lindy, right, she's new on my team, and I do a training appointment. Some of the training appointments might want financial help, some may not, right? And then I do a data collect with the ones that want that. And then I do a recommend. That could be 2 to 3 week time frame that I don't get paid, and then I'm getting paid at the end. You think about that, and here's the cool thing about what we can do, though, on the idea of seasons, is I can have a different harvest all year round. Meaning, like, if I'm consistently training people, consistently on top 25s, consistently helping people, consistently making calls, then it doesn't become this no money now, then there's money, then there's no money now, then there's money. Like, I can create it towards like a pipeline, like we always talk about, where it's constantly coming in. But it's not because there's not a season. It's just I'm in different stages of the season with different people. That's the cool part too here. But what I see a lot of people do is they'll be consistent for a very brief time. Oh, this doesn't work. Or I'm not seeing what I want. They stop really planting seeds. So there's no way for anything else to come in. And then maybe they quit, or maybe they, and I've seen this too, maybe they stop, they get a few things in the pipeline, they get the money, they get a good month of income. And now they're at the very beginning again. Like, oh, I had a little pop or a big pop. I made 3 or 4 grand, and now I'm back to zero because there's nothing in the pipeline, because I'm not following the system consistently. And that's why you want to really be like, you want to be making calls and doing data collects and ASAPs, right? And training people. Like, if you do all of it, then you get a well-rounded season of constantly new things, right?
Right, we gotta spin plates.
Exactly.
We got a lot of plates all different times.
Exactly. So that's kind of what I wanted to train on. I hope it's encouraging. And I think what you said was really good, which is think about if that's encouraging to you or not, and why. Like, do you feel like you are doing a lot? And if you are, this is a validation to what you're doing. Keep on doing it, right? If you're not, that's not a bad thing, because here's my thing, is I would rather know if I'm constantly crashing and burning, not making money, not getting to where I want to be, wouldn't you want to know the answer as to why? Like, no one, I don't think, some people like to be a victim. I really believe that. But I think most of us are like, hey, just tell me the answer so I don't keep on like running around in circles, right?
The definition of insanity.
Exactly.
Doing the same thing over and over again, expect no result.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is something I kind of want to bring up a little bit with my beliefs. It kind of goes along with the laws. So there are these laws, and God is tied to those laws. So he says, this is the law. If you do this, then I will do this.
Right.
He's tied to those. He can't go back on that at all. So if we put the work in, then he has to come in and help.
Yeah.
If we don't do that, then he's no longer tied to that. So he's tied to it. So as long as we're doing it, it will work out. Like your 18,000, as long as you're doing it, he has to. He has. There's no way for him to go back on that because he doesn't break his promises. He doesn't break his laws.
Right.
We break his laws, but he doesn't break them.
Yeah.
So as long as we are doing what he has asked of us, then he has no choice.
Right.
That's good. That's good. So last point I'll point out, I wanted to just show you guys two things. I showed Dylan and Serrania this yesterday, but really here's an easy way to think about it. Here, the financial products you'll pick up, like all of that, the only thing you need to worry about is activity, okay? So write down activity. So what are you doing, right? And I'm gonna totally botch how to spell this. I was a history major, so I used spell check a lot. Persuasion is what I'm trying to write. So you kind of jumble them up. Yeah, persuasion, right? But the art of persuasion and activity, okay? You can do a lot of activity, and if you have no persuasion skills, you'll get nowhere. If you have great persuasion skills and do no activity, you get nowhere, right? You get to combine the two. I think the best way to do it is activity comes first, persuasion comes as you do more activity, right? Like I can't get 10 people into the VPN with 10 calls, right? It took me like 40 people to call, and I get like 2 or 1. Now I obviously get more because I've been doing it better. I have more persuasion skills. Now persuasion's an interesting word. I take it, and most people take it as negative. Like you're persuading someone to do something. And that's all true. So in order to be a good persuader and a good person, you need a few things. Number one, you have to believe in what you are doing. Believe, right? Okay, here's the other big one. Don't fear man. You really believe in what you do, but you're fearful of what people think and what happens. Well, I disagree with you. Right? So you can't fear man, but you have to really believe in what you're offering and helping people with. I really don't think you need much more than that. Now, there's little ways to say things differently or stuff like that, but in your head, to do it the right way, you have to really believe in what you do. You need to not fear man. And here's the last one. For those brain people that like to just think and think and think, stop. Overthinking everything for eternity.
You spell that one right?
Etc. Etc. Some people do. And with that, energy, whether it's good or bad, is still energy. So you only have a certain amount of energy. So if you're spending all your time overthinking everything, then you're not going to have the energy to actually do anything, right? And that's the same thing with perfection or whatever. Like, I have a natural tendency to be negative. So if I'm constantly thinking negatively, I have less time to think positively, right? Right. So where are you using your energy? If you have limited energy, you need to figure out for you what are your kryptonites that make you go negative and what allows you to go positive. Like I'll give you an example. If I don't have, if I'm a very confident person, if that's me, then I should be spending my time using that in prospecting and looking for good people, not hammering people over the head, right? You know what I mean? But that's an example of 2 different ways, same trait, personality trait, 2 different ways to use it. All right, I'm done. Quentin, any last comments?
Just on your persuasion, I think that the thing in my belief of persuasion is crusade. There is a crusade here. That crusade is, in my opinion, the thing that is my persuasion. My belief comes from the activity that I've done in the past, the people I've helped, the people I see Mark and Rachel help in the past, and how that activity that I saw and did became the persuasion in my voice inflection, everything. People call me back the other day. A lady called me back because I get a lot of voicemails from people. She goes, "You're the one I called back because you didn't sound like you were a guy." There was a belief in there. She goes, "You didn't sound like a guy that was a beep."
Salesman.
Yeah. She says, "You sound like someone that I could talk to."
Yeah.
Right. Because of my belief and my calmness of that. When people are brand new in the business or they're not brand new in the business, just their demeanor on the phone is crazy. Right? Are you that angry guy that leaves voicemails, right? Because you have to be a nice person on the phone and then in person be a nice person, right? Because they're going to come check you out and they're still checking you out. But I believe if you do the persuasion right, and the way you do the persuasion right is get in the field and see how we help people.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, you're like, well, can I just see some people? Well, no, you got to do the activity, right? Mark says you can't put a log in the stove and go, "Give me some heat." Can't do that. You got to put the log in there. You got to put some kindling around it. You got to do some work, right? Some newspaper stuffed under there, and you got to light a match to get that fire. And you cannot come here and expect someone else to do it. As he said, you can't give God 90% of the things you need to do, and you only get 10%. Come on.
Yeah.
Nothing works that way. Nothing. So I got a question for you. Last week we talked about goals. How many of you guys have started your goal setting stuff? How many of you guys have scheduled the time to meet with your trainer? Talk about your goals. Well, that's Saved by the Bell right there. So that should be something, as he said, affirmations are a big part of your goal setting as well. Right? It doesn't take a lot. Me and Rachel are actually going to take a day off and go somewhere and set our goals. So are you guys going to set time to go somewhere and do that?
I didn't know that was in your vocabulary.
Take time off?
Day off, man.
Who do you take time off?
That's it. Yours.
In my vocabulary, it's not so much in Rachel's. Yes, but when she's gone, it's good.
Or you're just whispering straight up.
Hey guys, did the bell ring?
Yes, no, that's wrong. They're going back to schedule now.
They're going back to schedule now, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I got an important announcement regarding Winter Park for those of you that qualify for Winter Park, so make sure I forgot to announce it when I was up here before, so I just want to make sure you're
Yeah.
okay, so you discuss you guys right now, so go to the other and then what's really sure. All right. Hey, man, it's good to see
I can that.
Let's do that. By the time we went through security, left security. Wow.
Did you put them all in here?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the back seat.
You really dig into the structure on. To me, it's like the
Her office full.
Because if you,
Jackson Gap Road.
So does he tell it?
It's like I said, nobody can just say. I'm gonna share this with you later. When you were doing this. Yeah, there's traffic. This was last year.
They're just curious. Because yeah, all the way
I mean, I grew up in the church.
so she's outside of my
All right, guys. Grab your seat real quick if you guys don't mind. Come in and sit down and let's go over the results and we've got some announcements. Grab your seats. All right. All right, guys, ready? Everybody's sitting in focus. All right, let's go over results real quick. Didn't take long. And then I've got a winter park announcement, and then we'll grab our teams for Friday tomorrow. Okay, so Evan's guest Sharon. Sharon Harder was an 8 in interest level. Come back 5:30 on Wednesday. Give Evan a hand. Evan's guest today was interest level 9. Come back Wednesday. Looks like Wednesday 7 p.m. Wednesday the 10th at 7 p.m. Eddie was Cameron's guest. Great job, Cameron. Evan's guest. So wow, Evan's team had a lot of people here. Vaughn Villerin was a 10 in interest level, and he's come back Tuesday at 12:30. Good job, Evan. Let's see, Ron McKell-Tully, whose guest was, oh, that was Ann's guest, okay. And Ann's guest was an 8 in interest level, coming back on the 9th. What day is that?
Monday.
That's Monday. Good, that's a better turnaround. Monday at 12 p.m. So good job, Ann. Lashana Felker, is that also Ann's guest? Okay. So Lashana Felker, interest level 8, come back Tuesday. Is it 9 or 10?
It's Monday at 11.
Oh, Monday at 11. Okay, good. So that's Tuesday here, but you got it.
Okay.
Okay, good. So you got it Monday then? Good job, man. Last in the time frame. That's good. And then Michelle Don Wright. Oh, that was Crystal's guest. And actually, she's sticking back today for interview. So good job. Great job. And then Jen's guest, Lakia Rose King, was an interest level of 10 and coming back, is it on
Monday at 2.
Monday at 2 p.m. Great job, Jen. So we got great results out of us. So thank you to Rachel and Q for running the meeting today. That's exciting. And so, hey, I want to announce. I know how many of you have qualified. I know final numbers are coming out now, and will be finalized here in the month of November, because we ran a contest October and November for Winter Park. We did it last year and had an absolute blast. We decided to repeat the contest this year, and we're going to be going up next Friday. So we'll be Friday night, Saturday night, and come back on Sunday at Winter Park. So I wanted to talk really quickly about that to make all of you that didn't qualify jelly, a little jealous over that, and those of you that did, what hotel to register at, what I'd recommend, okay? So how many of you qualified, raise your hand if you qualified for Winter Park or you think you did. Raise your hand if you qualified for Winter Park. Okay, Melanie, Rachel, Daniel, anybody else? Q, Rachel and Q, yes, okay, all right. And I know Tony and Jimmy did as well. So here's what the contest was, just so you guys know. Look at your net points. So if you're a training associate, associate, senior, or MD, Sally, did you raise your hand? Sally? So if you're one of those positions, for every 5,000 points of production, there's a $200 credit given to you for paying for, your food, hotel, that type of thing. We went up there. Jaden went with me last year. We went down. There's a huge tubing hill right in the center of town. Oh my God, it was so much fun. I hope we do that again. If not, Jaden, we'll just go do it. No. That was a lot of fun. We did that. Ate out some great restaurants. It was really Christmassy with all the lights. It was beautiful up there. If you're an SMD, for every 8,500 points of production, then you get that $200 credit. And so for those of you that are going or qualified, then it's a reimbursement trip. So we'll look at once the points finalized. Even if you made it, get your hotel booked, and then of course we'll reimburse it. But I did the Winter Park. I think it's called Mountain Lodge. It's like the #1 rated, like the most stars when I went on to the different sites, whatever. But that one, like Founders Point or something, were very highly rated. But Mountain Park Mountain Lodge Winter Park Mountain Lodge is where I registered for my hotel. So that's where I recommend we stay, and we're gonna have a blast doing that next weekend. All right. If you didn't qualify for this trip and you were around and it was a shoulda, coulda, woulda, man, don't let that happen again. Right? This contest, we created it to make it doable. Hey, didn't you qualify? Huh?
I did the points, but
You did the points, but no, you had to get one in 2 months.
I know.
One.
She was so close.
She was.
I'm proud of you, Kenny. I think you did a great job.
Yeah. That's right.
So, anyway, we're gonna go have fun. Here's the cards up here. We went over the schedule going into the end of the month of December, and it's posted. It's posted right back there on the board. So I know we have regular BPMs up until the weekend going into Christmas. So just look at that as far as like when we're having BPMs and training and when we're not, but we're pretty consistent. I know once we get into the Christmas holiday, I think it's only on the 28th, which is a Saturday, right? So we're doing that, doing the training on that Saturday, the 28th. But obviously, we're not here that previous week, and then we're at Wellful the following week. Okay. So with that, are there any SMDs? Are there any other announcements that I need to make?
Just
come up here.
Yeah, just like tomorrow. I just want to make sure like no one on your team or our team needed questions related. Is everyone good on the party tomorrow? Yes. Does anyone else need information on it?
I think we're meeting with our team. Mark, are we meeting with our people?
Yeah.
Yes, our base shop. Yeah, our base shop will stay here. So Rachel, real quick, we just have a few announcements we need to make for the party tomorrow. So do you guys have any announcements with your team?
No, I just wanted to make sure everyone knew where to go and all of that.
Okay.
Do you want to do that too?
I'm going to do that here with my team. So if did you guys want to go back to the bathroom with your team?
I was actually going to meet with my people.
No. Daniel, if you want to meet with
do you guys need to? Anyone on Evan's team or my team? Do you guys need to about anything, or are you guys all good for tomorrow?
Leslie put everything out on group meet, so.
We usually communicate pretty.
Right.
Exactly.
I think we're taking back just a few quick announcements for Rachel and my base shop tomorrow. Everyone else. Oh yeah, they're out. Yeah. Yes. So if you're brand new on the team or you've been around for a while, but if you're on my team,